Hello. I'm a few minutes behind schedule. I didn't realize my clock in one room is different than the clock in the other room. So let's see. Turn this chat overlay on. Give people time to join us. I hope I'm live on Facebook too. Guess I'll go out here and see. You can see all my gel in my hair. I'll clean this camera a little bit. I am here. I see a few of you are joining this afternoon. I don't know if you guys are on lunch or not. Sometimes I am. Most of the time I don't eat till 2. But thank you all for joining. Those of you who remembered, I know I'm a little off schedule. I was supposed to be here last week and didn't realize how much of a conflict I had. So I had a couple of conflicts between managing my schedule and some things my clients had me doing. But I am happy to be back here today. I know it's the middle of the day and sometimes it's hard for folks to get away. But one of the things that I realized doing these lives is even if it's only 4 or 5 people on live, the replays get quite a bit of interaction. So it's always great to know that people come back and they take a look or a listen. So I hope you all can hear me well. I'm not going to delay. I'm going to jump on in and share with you a couple of things. So today we're talking about compensation negotiation, destroying the pay gap with compensation negotiations. And so this is still Women's History Month. And so I'm going to talk about this through the lens of women. And of course, because we have so many women of color, so Black women and Hispanic, Latino women, and maybe even Asian women who might listen to this, or other ethnicities and races, Indian, indigenous, the categories. I love the fact that we call people what they are. We call humans what they want to be identified as. So I love that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I'm not going to keep you too long. But one of the things I do want to do a quick touch base. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about relationship building and establishing a network of value add relationships. And so I want to check in and find out what y'all been doing with these relationships. And in the chat window, say hello. Let me know who's out there, who's watching, who's listening, where you're listening from. I know I saw one person share this, and so they're doing their own watch party. So feel free to share it, tag somebody, ping them, get them to come on over and hang out with us, because we want everybody to be unstuck and unstoppable. So Unstuck and Unstoppable is the name of this series. And this name is so special to me because someone in my life who will disclose who that person is at a later date helped me pick out this book title. They came up with this title, and when we polled the title, it overwhelmingly was chosen by our audience of people we polled. So the name of my book is Unstuck and Unstoppable. It will be coming out this year, hopefully this summer. I was shooting for April, but we're not going to make the April deadline. However, it's coming, right? I did a thing. The thing is done, and I'm excited about it. I put myself out there. I'm being vulnerable. And, hey, it's done. I did a thing. Hey, Sue Delta. Hello, Shantina. I got somebody here from Georgia, from Jacksonville, Florida, taking lunch with me. So I do appreciate it. Sue Delta, tell Charles I said hello. I miss you guys. So we want to talk about compensation negotiation. And some of you have been with the same employer for a long time. And have what does that mean for you? Right? Does it mean, hey, I got stability. I know where I am. I'm comfortable here. I get good bonuses. I get good raises, all of these different things. So when we think about the C-suite, look at me, I'm reading Kim's message and then I inserted it into what I was saying. So when we think about compensation negotiations, what does that really mean? So that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we close the equity pay gap for women in this space? Because women are still making 75 cents on the dollar of what every man makes. And then that breaks down, it gets less by race and gender, right? It's, Asian women are making probably about 78 cents. That's probably simply because they're in the technology field, and that is not a bias. That's what the data says. And then Black women, and then it just kind of goes down. Black women, Hispanic, all of these different categories, and we start to decrease. So real quick again, I'm Jeannine Brown. I am the managing director for Everyday Lead, and we focus on helping companies with their strategies around diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as do a significant amount of leadership development for organizations through the form of executive coaching and workplace seminars. So I get to spend time with people, what I always say, helping people be the best human that they desire to be. And it helps me grow. So that's great. So I did want to do a quick check-in. 2 weeks ago, because I wasn't here last week because of a conflict, we talked about establishing a network of value-added relationships. So I want to know what you guys been doing. How many intros did you do to someone else or for someone else this over the last 2 weeks? Have you introduced anybody? Have you made new connections? Have you grown a connection? And the last question is, have you reconnected, which I think is really powerful with someone. So I see Kim Johnson has in here. Kim, thank you for joining, and congratulations on your new role. I think I have a couple of somebody over there I want to introduce you to, so I definitely want to make sure you get to meet him. So Kim says with her new job, she's been in meetings with all the C-suite. She's never done that before. Her plan is to be better at checking in with them. Oh, that is awesome. So Kim, you were sitting at the table, right? That table that everybody's always talking about. And so you've gotten to this point in your career with your organization where you are there with them. Build those relationships. Like get in there and build those relationships, both based on what you're doing to support their organization, and hopefully they will grow and they'll be your personal relationship. So even if you decide to leave that organization, those are people that you can say, hey, I've connected with them, I made friends with them, and I promise you they'll open doors for you that you can't even imagine right now because of the access that they have here in the city. So congratulations. So Lori is in Charlotte. She said she made 5 intros and 3 reconnects. All right, Lori, thank you for doing the work and reporting in. And that's pretty powerful. So Lori, what did you learn? And you can put that in the chat window from making those reconnections, right? By reconnecting with people, what did you learn about yourself and about them? All right, let's talk about compensation negotiation before our time is out. So, ladies, what y'all doing when you're negotiating your compensation? I find it so interesting because when I talk to my clients, they do all sorts of research on these new jobs and what the company's doing, some of the benefits, but not all of them, what the culture is like. They try to find out if they have a relationship with the hiring manager, all sorts of research, what kind of programs they have. Do they have business resource groups so they could join a resource group for Black people, for women, for LGBTQ, whatever however they self-identify? Are there programs there to support them for that? What they don't do, what y'all don't do enough of, is understanding what the compensation is for the role that you're in, both in your industry and profession, and specifically at that company. Y'all talk to the recruiters and you get the range, which I think is a great start. But really understanding, what do I have to demonstrate so that I make sure that I'm at the top of that range? I had a recruiter, a hiring manager tell me once, which I thought was absolutely asinine. He told me, well, we don't like to start people at the top of the range. We like to start them closer to the lower part so that they have a place to grow. I was like, are you serious? Like, think about what that means, right? So we want you to be in this role all your life, and we're going to give you a place to start, not because of your credentials, your qualifications, or your experience. This is our strategy to help you grow to the compensation, which is such a horrible strategy, right? Looking at people in their organizations. What if you don't want to grow in this role? This could be the jump start for where you're trying to go. And so we want to make sure that your hiring managers and the recruiters or whoever you're dealing with is not looking at this as, oh, I'm coming to this role, I'm going to be here 5 years and I'm going to grow into it. So start me way down at the bottom of the salary range. So that's my big chunk for today, right? It's make sure you know where you're starting in that salary range so that when they say to you, we're going to offer you this role, it pays, $85,000 a year, you can understand where does that fall within the range. And then the next question should be, this is the tip I tell all my clients. You should say, what do you need to hear from me and what do I need to demonstrate so that we can get to the top of that salary range? Because we do understand companies have budgets for roles, they have budgets for with how much their department is going to have for payroll. We know that. And if you don't know that, that is how it works, right? They have a budget. They know how much total payroll, they have to work with for their entire department. They try to identify what that's going to be based on the roles. And then, of course, they look at all the other sort of reasons of why that salary should be that. If you don't ask that question, if you've never asked that question before, I want you to put that in your notes and say, always ask them, what do you need to see from me? What experience do I need to demonstrate so that I can be at the top, right? So we can max this out. Because you don't plan to stay there for the rest of your life, right? You want to move around, you want to take more responsibility, and you want to maximize your compensation. And when I talk about maximizing compensation, it comes from this. Women, year over year, are making, by the time we retire, if you are 40 years old and you are retiring at 65, if you are underpaid, the likelihood that you will retire at the market level is probably not going to happen. But the worst part about that is when we quantify what that looks like. And what that looks like is women make almost $1 million less in their lifetime because their failure to negotiate. Isn't that crazy? Failure to negotiate could cost you millions of dollars in your lifetime. Now, think about what that looks like for retirement. If you are a mother and the head of the household, if you're single and you just want to have more money, whatever, unmarried with children, whatever that looks like for you, $1 million over the life of your career because we don't negotiate. The second part of that is either we're not negotiating or we are negotiating from a disadvantage, right? We're looking at what we make today, negotiating for a role that most times has more responsibility, oversight, visibility. It's a bigger role, and we negotiate from the role that we're currently doing. So my second tip to help decrease or shrink that pay equity gap is negotiate based on the role that you're going to. Don't negotiate based on what you're making today for what you're doing today. That's the second mistake that I see a lot of my female clients make. They'll say, well, I'm making, $125,000 today. I just feel uncomfortable asking for, more than 135, 140. I'm like, why? Right? You want to negotiate for the new role. And what typically happens is when they don't see the value in themselves to negotiate more, they eventually, within 6 months or less, find out what their predecessor made. Most of the time, their predecessor is a man. And the difference between what they're making today and what their predecessor was making was $20,000 to $25,000 a year. Because these men they not out here playing. They getting their money. And so I want women to get theirs too. Right. And negotiation comes up with everything. We're talking about salary. I have to do it, all the time in my business. Like constantly negotiating to the point that some people I can't work with because I'm sorry, not sorry. Like I can't do it for that amount, right? And I think we have to look at it ourselves that way as well, right? We're in a pretty good market. Understand what your market is doing, know what your value is, and then being able to share it, to talk about it, which is the third thing that I think is the reason there is a huge pay equity gap. There was a study recently that talked about the number of words men use in their resumes and other social profiles for jobs. They said men use a minimum of 77 words to describe themselves, the work they've done, and their abilities. So like keywords. So if you're an accountant, they're using keywords that you would be looking for, like different types of systems, leadership and management, terminology, technical terminology. They use that in their resumes. In the chat window, guess how many words women use? What do y'all think? I'm going to give y'all a couple of seconds to guess, and I'm going to go out here and read some of these comments in the chat window. Tina said, we have to do better. Yes, we do, sis. Brendolyn, I'm glad you like that question. Make sure you write that down and keep it, right? What do I need to demonstrate so that I can move up to the top of this pay salary? So how many words do y'all think women are using? Tina said 20. Because men are using 77. So that's their resumes. That's when they go into a job portal. Because, these doggone job portals want your resume and then they still don't insert all your information. Lori said 15 to 20. Ebony said 25. Ebony's a little bit closer. So women are using from 40 to 50 words at time. Sue Delta said probably a bit more. No, 100 words. No, Sue Delta, we say more words. Unfortunately, we don't write more words. And I don't know what that is about, right? As women, we communicate many more words than men. So Sudelta, you said that right. And I'm sure you got a whole gang of men, husband and boys that you're raising. But unfortunately, when it's time for us to sit down and write, Carolyn, no, we're not saying 100. We're not using 125 words. We're using 55 words or less. For some reason, we think we should minimize what we put on a resume. And that's the other reason that men are typically more men applying, getting offers to come interview for roles and getting those offers because they are coming up at the top of the pile of qualified candidates simply because of how they write their resumes. Simply because they're demonstrating just using keywords in their resumes that they have what it takes to do those jobs. And coupled with that, like directly linked to that is they're applying for jobs, that they're not qualified for yet, right? So they look at a resume and say, okay, it has 25 requirements on here. I got 15 of these. I got 18 of these. I'm going to apply anyway. Women look at that same job application and say, ooh, I only got 15 of these. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. Then we start to feel like an imposter, like, oh, we could never do this role. So imposter syndrome starts to rise up in us. Then we just completely tell ourselves that we don't have enough experience. We'll never get into leadership or management roles. We'll never be like Kim Johnson with a seat at the table with the C-suite executives because we just don't have enough experience. This job won't give me the experience that I need. You hear me? This is what women say. We have these long conversations with ourselves, and then we move on to the next job that's very much equivalent to what we're currently doing, and we apply for that. And then we're in this series of lateral moves because we don't take the chance on ourselves and apply for the jobs that we're not ready for, we're not qualified for, right? So that's the other reason that there's this pay equity gap, right? So we talked about, not negotiating, number one, not understanding what the salary ranges and what are the salaries in the organizations we're going to. And the other thing about that is we don't even talk about it. And I'm gonna get to that. That's my last point. And then we talked about a little bit about how we need to apply for these jobs that we're not ready for. And we need to beef up our resumes, our LinkedIn profiles, and any other place where our professional profile is, and ensure that it is clearly describing what we're qualified to do. And we need to do it, right? We're qualified to do this work. And don't try to minimize it. Get to that 100, 125 number in your resume of keywords and quantify it and use very good descriptive words and tell people exactly what you've done and the impact you've made in your role. The other thing that we don't do is we don't keep negotiating once we're within the company. Our expectation is, oh, our work will speak for itself. I'm going to do my work. It'll speak for myself. My manager is cool. They're going to reward me. They're fair. They're going to reward me. But your manager is also looking out for him or herself, right? That's their first responsibility. Even if they have high emotional intelligence, they're trying to manage their own money. They're trying to manage their own promotions. They're trying to manage their own visibility. So we have to make sure that women are managing their own visibility as well. And so we have to start talking more. We have to start sharing a lot more about what we're doing and how we're making it happen. So how many of you have friends and family members that know how much money you make a year? I'm going to give you a second to respond. How many people know how much you make? If you make 75,000, 90, 125, 225, do people in your close network know how much money you make a year? Yes or no? Yes, no, or hell no, right? You might be like, I ain't telling nobody how much money I make. So in the chat window, just share with me real quickly, how many people, does anybody know that's your friends, how much money you make? So Ebony said they did. Ebony's on a little sabbatical. Kim says no. Angela Frazier, no. Mine do not. Shantina says no. Yeah. Sudelsa said probably not. What about even people in your profession, right? So if you and someone else do similar type work, maybe even at different companies, y'all have the same credentials, maybe the same type of experience or complementary experience. Do you talk to them about what they make and what you make? Lori says that there's a couple of folks that have a range. Kim said it's funny because we used to share that information. Oh, y'all started balling out, Kim, and y'all stopped sharing it. What happened? Ebony said even when she was there, and Ebony worked in public accounting, that she even shared with her coworkers. Oh yeah. So I learned that working at Deloitte. So, we learn from either culture and our families, maybe things that we've heard and we've seen that says don't tell anybody what your salary is, to the point that companies started telling people that they could not discuss their compensation. And then there was a law passed saying companies, you can't tell people not to discuss their compensation. So even companies were trying to, they had this veil of secrecy around it. Well, that is one of the next reasons why there's this huge equity pay gap among women. And I will also say people of color. So even on this show, most of you that are watching that I know, you're Black women. Most Black women and Black people do not talk about salary. But if you come around me, we don't talk about salary. If we start talking about work, I might ask you, how much you making? Okay. Let's make sure that, because I want to make sure that my friends are making the kind of money that they should be making. And a lot of people are not. I had someone, he was younger than me. He had less experience than I was. I wasn't even doing accounting work anymore. And I knew where he was. And, you know, he worked in technology. He was in accounting and finance. And he was talking about something. And I was like, well, how much do you make? And he gave me this look like I asked for his firstborn child. And I looked at him and I said, I promise you, what I left corporate America making, you're not making it yet. And I didn't say that to shame. My point was, I don't want your money. And Justin said, yes, I will ask. I don't want your money, but I do want to make sure you're where you're supposed to be. And he did not share with me. And maybe 2 years later, he called. He wanted to talk about, his company. He was feeling undervalued, blah, 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 blah. So he was giving me all this sob story. And I reminded him, I said, remember when I asked you? And he went into it like, you kind of asked me, you caught me off guard and so on. Y'all, we need to talk about this. That's why, although women are underpaid, we are underpaid. Black women and Black professionals are underpaid behind a lot of other races and ethnicities, simply because we have this shame or discomfort, or we've created this norm that you don't talk about salary. We got to talk about it, even if it's in among a trusted group, or find a professional that does this kind of work and say, hey, I'm looking to negotiate my compensation at this amount. And what do you think about that? Because most of the times when people call me and tell me that, I was like, no, you should ask for this plus these perks. Because oftentimes people are only focused on that base salary and they forget about all the other benefits and potential benefits out there. And that's because they don't understand at what level in my organization do people start getting stock options? What level will I get, A, B, C, and D, whatever those benefits are. So I want to challenge you all, because, I'm a coach and I'm always throwing out challenges. Start having these conversations with no shame, because the one thing that you will know is where you are, as it pertains to your peers. You can verify, am I negotiating, asking for the right things? And a lot of you have really close, trusted friends. So it wouldn't be any shame around this. And the only shame that you might feel is like, dang, I'm making 25,000 less than my friends. I wish I had known, because then I would have gone in and asked for more money. And so then when you get to performance evaluation time, keep on asking. Keep asking for money. I remember a senior executive that I worked with, I was complaining about wanting more compensation. And it was mid-year. They didn't typically always do mid-year increases. And he asked me one day, he was like, well, damn, Jeannine, how much money do you want to make? And I was like, I want to make all of it. I was like, y'all had me, and I listed it out. Look, I'm traveling, I'm doing this. These are my clients. This is the value I'm bringing. This is what my clients say about me. This is what you say about me. When you need something, I'm not the second person you call. I'm the first person you call. Like, I just started running it down. And he was like, okay, I hear you. And I also knew that men were going in, sharing their stories about, their needs financially to support their families. They weren't even using the kind of stuff like work related things. They were talking about what was happening outside of the office to demonstrate that they needed more compensation. So ladies and gentlemen who are watching this, make negotiating, just focus on that and get your negotiation skills up. in everything that you're doing, because no one out here, even the recruiters, if it's a third party recruiter, even they know they're going to get their minimum fee. If it's 15, 20%, regardless of what your salary is, right? They're going to make sure that they get that. But they might not be getting all the money for you because they even have their own biases. They have biases about how much women should make. They have biases about being grateful and gratitude as well. And, we're not out here trying to be grateful for what we get. We're not volunteering. This is work. You are working and you should be fairly compensated for it. And I would say even overcompensated. There's plenty of funds to go around. So Ebony says, should people wait until review time to talk about comp with their current employer? No, don't. I would start, at least 6 months out having that conversation, what your expectations are, and being clear what you expect to get as far as a promotion and a bonus. Because guess what? They're doing it. So make sure that you start having that conversation and don't have it once. And even if someone tries to shame you about you asking for money all the time, don't be shamed. You asking for work all the time, right? So we just have to become more comfortable talking about money in the workplace in order for us to be comfortable, right? Talking about it, more comfortable about it. But we're talking about it as a business strategy, right? You are your own representative. And so this is your strategy to come to the table and say, this is, my expectations based on what I want. And it should be tied to, this is where I see myself within the organization as well, right? I'm not looking to stay in this place, love working for you, but I see myself doing more. I have more to contribute. And along with doing more is more compensation. So thank you all for joining today. It's always great to be here. Please tell somebody. So next week, we're talking about leveraging your skills to get the job you're not ready for. That's one of the things I believe the most. So we're going to go back and talk about applying for jobs, not the ones that you can do, the ones you can't do. And I have some great stories about that. All right, Justin, cut me a check, cut you a check. Cut me a check. You get all this free coaching. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Sue Delta. I'm glad you were able to have lunch with me today. Let's see who else is here. Thank you, everyone. Kim, keep sitting at that table, girl. Ask good questions. Get that money. Thank you, Tina. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for joining. And we didn't even talk about merit role. If you're in a merit role, let me throw this in real quick. If you are in a merit role in an organization, you can still negotiate. So you just got to find out what's important to your hiring manager, see where you're going, and still negotiate. They might say we're only giving people 3% raises, but some people are only going to make sure you get the max. And just the negotiation, it starts with the ask. All right. Bye, y'all. Bye, Brenda Lynn. I look forward to seeing you next week, too. Thank you, Angela. Thanks for joining.